All right. Hello. We are here this evening with Ravana Nuun of the Temple of the Black Serpent. And Ravana is here to talk to us about the left hand path. I'm just going to talk briefly about how I came across Ravana. I think it was about 2 years ago. Um, it was definitely it was during the pandemic because I everything all the gyms were closed down. I couldn't go to the gym like I wanted to, so I just would go outside and walk. And every Sunday morning, I think you used to post every Sunday morning on
Mm-hmm.
YouTube. And I don't even remember how I came across you or anything. I just saw it one day. I don't remember what it was that stuck out to me, but it was something in the title that stuck out to me. Okay. I was like, okay, this sounds like something that makes perfect sense to me. Let me listen to see what he's talking about. And every Sunday morning, I go out to walk like clockwork. You had something posted on YouTube, and I listened to it for a long time, quite a few months. And I think it even might have been close to a year. Not, I didn't listen every day, every Sunday for a year, but a year before I actually reached out to you and checked out your Patreon. Of course, I took a class, through your Patreon, right? And so that's how I came across Ravana Nunn. And uh, the things that I felt that you spoke about in your, I know for a lot of people, most people can, it's scary, they want to run. Okay.
Yes.
I don't know if I told you much about my background. I don't think so, but
Nope.
okay. I don't even know if you knew I had a YouTube channel or anything. I didn't say, talk
No,
about any.
I did. That I did because I saw I think a link pop up on my YouTube one time.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
So
That's
I see the videos come up every so often. Yeah.
okay. That's interesting because I have an old channel back then that I got rid of, but I have another channel now that would. But my old one, I would just do tarot. On this one, I do religious studies series because I went to a seminary. I was
Right.
professor of comparative world religion, introduction to religious studies, African American religious experience. So I do a little series on that.
Cool.
And I just like a variety of things. I'm kind of
Right.
eclectic like that. And the thing about it, like when I whatever it was that you posted that first time that I saw that, I said, okay, this sounds like something that has always been a thought of mine. Because see, I was born and raised in the church, and certain things you just, you know, it either went against the teachings of Christianity and the church, but
Right.
regardless, to me, it's like to me it was common sense. A lot of the things that I would hear you talk about were commonsensical things in my eyes. And I had to get to that place in my reality that no, it's common sense to you. You understand what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Doesn't mean it's common sense to everybody. You know what
Yep.
I'm saying? And that was something that for me I really had to learn, you know. But I was just like, well, that just sounds like common sense. Um, I don't know how you feel about this, but even for me, even like growing up in church, I went to Protestant Christian schools, grew up in church, like in church, Sunday
Hmm.
school, the whole nine, going to Protestant Christian schools, and I went to Catholic school. So I knew a lot of the Bible, because we were taught Bible stories, religion class, everything. And I was like, some of this is kind of biblical. You
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying? But people don't
Yep.
realize that. And I'm going to ask you this as I get into it, but even like I have a copy of the Satanic Bible, and I used to teach, like I said, I would teach comparative world religion, introduction to religious studies. So my students, I would have a lot of students who, they were like Satanists or, something along those lines. So I would have students for an assignment, do a presentation on religion that wasn't covered in class. So the
Right.
Satanists, I would allow them to do that. So a kid had a Satanic Bible. I remember seeing this Bible when I was young, when the malls and the bookstores, and I was in the bookstore. I would always go to the bookstore when we would go to the mall. I'm going to the bookstore. I would go to that section, and what a section on things like this, spiritual things, what my name meanings,
Right.
zodiac signs, stuff like that, because I wanted to know about me, my what's this sign all about, and what's my name mean, and a lot of things that you can't find in the bookstores anymore, and some things that you can't even find in the library, or it's something that they won't let you take out because some of the information that they have out there, and definitely names, name meanings, they have been completely changed, And like I said, I was always into that stuff. But there was always a satanic Bible there. You know what I'm saying? And I would just like, like run about the bookstore when I saw it or felt freaky or whatnot. So when one of my students, he had the book and I asked him, could I borrow it? And he told me, of course I could. And took the book home. I think over Thanksgiving break, was too scared to even take it out my bag,
Yep.
and I kept saying, you're being ridiculous, and I opened it, and all I saw initially was well, they don't call it their 10 commandments, but kind of along those lines. And I read it and I said, well, this makes sense to me, but I was too scared to read the rest. Well,
Right.
years later, years later, I took the book back to him years later. I got the book and I was just like, you are being absolutely ridiculous. Read the book. If it bothers you or whatever, then just put the book down. Well, I read the book and I was like, this is it. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything like people would think, of
Yep.
course, with the name of the title, the name, of what the indoctrination that we have as far as, I'll just call it the dark side, just for conversation's sake for
Right.
right now. We've been indoctrinated with a lot of things. I feel, I don't want to say myth necessarily, but things that just simply are not true, you know.
Right.
So you see that book, you see the title, of course you're going to be afraid. We get the indoctrination from the church, those that have an agenda to keep us from that knowledge,
Yep.
which is very much a real part of ourselves. And so when I read the book, I was just like, this is a good ass book right here. And there's nothing in here in any way, shape, or form that a person would think, is in there based off the indoctrination from, because even the culture, the Western culture, it is an Abrahamic based,
Mhm.
religion based culture, which is a Christian, culture. Well, Judeo Christian culture,
Yes.
and even that history, like I was doing my religious studies series in Judaism, even that history, the whole idea of this Satan, the opposer, did not even become a part of, there was not even a part of the Hebrew culture, in their beginnings, in their inception. It was something that they adapted from the Babylonian culture.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, but it's just been turned on its head and made to be something that is not, movies, so on and so forth. And people have to understand there's an agenda out there to keep you from this aspect, of yourself. And but I want you to. I don't want to go into it myself. I asked you to come on. I want you to
Right.
go into it more in depth because you know a lot more than I do about it. So first, introduce yourself to us, however you choose. And before you get into exactly what the left hand path is, can you tell us how long you've been a part of it in your introduction?
Yeah. All right. So my name is Ravana Noon. That's my spiritual name. I've had that for many years. My journey began about 30 years ago. 30, going on 32 years now in the occult path, spiritual occult path. I as well did comparative religious studies,
Mm,
but mine was a little different where I went inside. What I mean by inside is, for example, yes, I was raised a Christian. I as well was raised in is a Seventh Day Adventist. For those
mm,
who know, Seventh Day Adventists can be a little strict. Go to church on Saturday, no TV on Saturday, no anything until the sun sets.
mm.
Went to private school until I was in sixth grade, and that
Okay.
was Seventh Day Adventist private school.
Mm,
So was pretty much raised inside the church, raised, learning the Bible, things of that nature. But learning the Bible from that perspective and learning it on your own is two different things.
yeah.
What I mean by that is when I began my study, I took it back. My study didn't begin with Christianity. I took it back to the Abrahamic traditions, the Hebraic, and
Mhm,
I therefore began the journey on that aspect. And when I started studying the Bible, I went back to the first five books of the Bible called Torah, right? El Torah or Torah is where I began at and started studying in English, but also learning what the definitions were in Hebrew, what the words were in Hebrew, which
Mhm.
doesn't always equate to English.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
this is why the English language can confuse you when you study ancient traditions, religions, things like that, because there's sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times there are words that do not equate or will not equate to what the word is in Hebrew, Arabic, let's say other ancient languages, the cuneiform, the Sumerian, the Metaneter of ancient Kemet, so on and so forth. There's no word that can actually equate to what it means in some of those ancient languages,
That's right.
and therefore, when we try to study religion, the Western religions, which is usually Abrahamic faith religions, we're getting a European perspective
Mm.
on a non-European tradition.
Right. Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so my journey began in that aspect. I then became a Muslim, took my Shahada in about 1989, 1990 was when I really just went into the spiritual and even the occult, took my Shahada to become a Muslim. But I was drawn always to more the spiritual perspectives, spiritual aspects within these Abrahamic faiths. So I went into the Sufism aspect of Islam, more Sufism that dealt more with the esoteric or the hidden or inner meanings of what the masses confuse as truth. There is an esoteric meaning that is far beyond the definition or ideas or concepts we create about just generic idea of religion and Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. It's a whole nother world there.
Mhm.
So not only did I study Islam, but I took the time to learn some of the Arabic, as opposed to the mistranslations that a lot of times the Quran has today. When
Okay.
you go into the Arabic, there is you clear up some of the misconceptions that are taught from the English Quran. Okay, so and I did Christianity. Like I said, I was raised there. During that time, like I said, I was drawn to the spiritual, metaphysical aspects of all these religious traditions. So I went in Sufism. I learned about more of the mysticism of the Hebrew culture within the Kabbalah, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
different aspects that relate to Melchizedek, also
Mhm.
known as Melchizedek, right?
Okay.
So I learned a lot of these ancient spiritual traditions within the at-large religious tradition that we're given. And that propelled me to continue searching. And that I became a Freemason and Rosicrucian, and
Mm.
I went into the Astara. And this was my belief was always if you really want to learn something, you have to go inside of it. The
Right.
problem is with a lot of people, we're so enamored with what the pastor, the preacher, the reverend, the imam, whatever says, that
Mhm.
we never take it upon ourselves to learn things for ourselves.
Right.
Okay? I
Mhm.
wanted to go inside things to learn it for them for myself. And when you go inside these, and what I mean by going inside is every religious tradition has a spiritual component to it or a secret
Yes.
society associated with it.
Yes.
Every one of
Mhm.
them. The
Mhm.
problem is the masses don't know that.
Mhm.
And that's purposeful. The masses don't know that because the masses have been duped, lied to, and basically manipulated to be what they are today, sheep.
Okay.
And those who seek to go inside usually learn the inner mysteries, they learn the symbolism, and they see what is actually being revealed other than what is uttered by the pastor, preacher, reverend, so on and so forth.
Right.
So I
Right.
went inside and got in and went into some of these so-called secret societies, spiritual organizations, and then from there I began studying the Eastern traditions of the Hinduism, and I studied some of the Persian aspects, things of that nature. Continuing on from there, not only that, but my background. I'm Puerto Rican, right? But a lot of people, when they hear Puerto Rican, it's also a generic term. And why I say that is because it literally just means a rich port. It does not describe who you are. It does not describe what your culture is, does not describe your racial background. Okay?
Okay.
So
Hmm.
when people take the time and start to investigate that, they find out, okay, well, Puerto Ricans are a mixture of African, a mixture of the Taino, which is the indigenous people of the island, and of course the European, which is mostly Spaniard, Portuguese, but there is Italian and other groups that came to Puerto Rico.
Hmm.
And within our culture, it is very heavily influenced by the African aspect. Although it is predominantly controlled by the Spaniard and the oppressed, don't realize that much of the root of the culture, the salsa music, the bomba music, the plena music, is African in origin.
Okay.
Much of There's over 200 African words we use on a daily basis in Puerto Rico within our culture.
Hmm.
The spices we use, the food that we eat, how it's prepared is very African in tradition.
Okay.
So it is all up inside the Puerto Rican culture. That I allude to that because I also learned and went into Santeria. Santeria, which is the syncretized Catholicism, and the
Hmm.
Ifa, which is comes from the Yoruba tribe of Africa, of Nigeria. That African Catholic mixture created what is known as Santeria today,
Okay.
where the Orisha are venerated, where there's a lot of African traditions, a lot of African music, a lot of African aspects that we keep alive within Santeria. So I did that as well for years. And that led me further to investigate the magical aspect of religions.
Hmm.
Magic in its essence is before religion. Magic has always been done on this planet, and
Hmm.
it's basically what was used to explain the unexplainable a lot of times, to do the impossible. Magic has always been there. So I started studying magic, went
Hmm.
back into ancient Kemet, started studying the Kemetic aspect of magic, Sumerian aspect of magic, African aspect of magic, European aspect of magic, and it led me eventually to where I am today, the left hand path. Okay. So, in a nutshell, I've been traveling this for 30 years. Now, how long have I been in the left hand path? About 12 years. Okay.
Okay.
What drew me to the left hand path was something that I noticed within religion, within magic, within spirituality. It's something that didn't sit well with me. And that is when you have questions, serious questions, seems like nobody has them, the answers for you. And that's not just in the church, that's
Hmm.
not just in the synagogue or the masjid.
Hmm.
That is also within magical traditions and
Hmm.
spiritual systems and so on and so forth, where the high priest or priestess will tell you, you just got to have faith, you just got to work it. Same thing I heard in religion. I'm not trying to hear that no more,
Right.
because faith has not led to anything that has been productive to us as a people. Okay. And why I say that is because you can have faith that the car will move by praying, or you can get the facts and put your foot on the gas and make the car move. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Or if you want to win the Powerball, which recently it was 1.2 billion or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And you're gonna pray to win the Powerball, but you never bought the goddamn ticket. How do
Right.
you think you're gonna win the Powerball if you didn't buy the ticket? So you
Right.
miraculously think that a God, a Jesus, a Jehovah, Yahweh, Allah, angel, a Malik, a Malaikat, so on and so forth, is going to knock on your door and say, "Here, you won the golden ticket." This is not Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You literally have to realize, if you do not do things for yourself and realize the power that is obtained within the self, there is not much that's going to go your way, because we are in a society of negative programming every day. So, what drew me to the left hand path? It's a path of self mastery. loosely said, that's the best way you could say it. It's a path of self mastery. It is learning to master yourself. Now, what does
Okay.
that mean? Okay, to
Yes.
the masses, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, self mastery." People use these things as like it's a fad. No, self mastery is not an easy ticket. Self mastery is actually the hardest ticket to cash in on this planet. Why? Okay, let's say you grew up in a household where mama wasn't always around
Mm-hmm.
because she had to work two jobs to put food on the table for you because dad was a deadbeat, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, or dad had left. So it's a single family household. So you grew up in a household with a strong mother figure, but mama wasn't always there when you needed her the most. No fault of her own. She had to do what she had to do to help you guys eat, grow, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say when you needed her the most one day, she wasn't there. So you felt abandoned. You felt that your attention wasn't being, I mean, the attention you were seeking was not being met. The core need that all humans have for camaraderie, for connection, to be heard, to be understood, begins at an early age, from 0 to 7. And most of us don't even realize that we're programmed from 0 to 7, and therefore by the time you're
Yes.
7, you are pretty much programmed by your parents,
Yes. Right.
society,
Mm-hmm.
religion,
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth.
Right.
So your mama wasn't there. Now you grew up looking for attention your whole life. And then
Mm-hmm.
because of that one little incident, it can create a issue that compounds itself and manifests into ways that lead you to seek attention in all the wrong places from all
Mm-hmm.
the wrong people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you end up in relationships that can be abusive mentally,
Mm-hmm.
physically, whatever the case may be. But because you associate any kind of attention you're getting as love because you didn't get it when you were younger, you put up with the that negative mental and physical abuse over and over because they are giving you attention.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so we do this bypassing of I'm gonna make an exception for this person because they
Yeah.
give me attention, they buy me things, but they're just crazy as heck and try to mentally and physically hurt me. You see
Yeah.
what I'm now? Here's the problem with that. From 0 to 7 years old,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and let's take it past 0 to 7, you have no choice but to be programmed because you're basically an empty canvas coming into this world.
Right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but how your program is just not always what you're told verbally. A lot of times we're programmed by what we observe, what we see.
Mm-hmm.
So if we see that our mom could be very violent when you didn't listen to her and she wanted to just punish you
Yeah.
with the belt
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, when you grow up to be older, you're going to think it's perfectly fine to administer discipline to your children in the same exact way. Therefore, you compound that issue and it becomes now generational issue.
Right.
Your kid, and grandkids, and so on and so forth keep compounding that cycle of excessive punishment because that's how your mama was taught. Therefore, that's what you think is right.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, your children are going to think it's right, so on
Mm-hmm.
and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So these issues from 0 to 7 seem very minuscule sometimes, but no, they're not. They're very serious. Okay? So now when you get older, you keep manifesting this issue and you keep reacting to things that trigger you because those issues are so deeply rooted inside you. You keep reacting in a certain way that keeps the cycle of abuse alive in your life. And until you learn to face that reality about yourself, which is not the easiest thing to do, when you realize I have a lot of weaknesses, I have a lot of trigger points, I have a lot of mental issues, so on and so forth, that's not the easiest thing to face.
Would you say that that's what people call doing your shadow work, or is that was would you say that that's what that is?
Yes and no. And let me tell you why I say yes and no. Okay. I'm gonna tell you yes and no because what shadow work is today has become really watered down. And I'm gonna
Okay.
explain why I say that. When I began 12 years ago, shadow work was something seriously deep and intense that went beyond meditation, uh, went beyond journaling, so on and so forth. Although those things have a good basis in
Hmm.
shadow work, it goes beyond that.
Hmm.
What happens is you need in the shadow work people need is something that cracks the code. What do I mean by cracking the code? What the work you do has to be able to crack past your conscious mind. It has to crack open your conscious mind and go beyond the surface layer of your subconscious mind.
Okay.
If we look in psychology, there is an analogy that is used. There's an iceberg, and the tippity top of the iceberg is your consciousness. However, most of what you don't see is beneath the surface of the water is your subconscious mind. So let's say what you see above the surface is 15%, but below the surface is 85%. That's your subconscious mind. So
Okay.
your subconscious mind is actually more involved in your progression than your
Mm.
conscious mind. People just don't realize that because the whole society, the world today is so caught up in this woke culture and cancel culture that they're really missing the point. You're canceling everything outside of yourself, but you ain't canceling shit about yourself inside.
Right.
The word, but you're not canceling anything about yourself.
Hmm.
You understand? So we're so busy out there that we forget the real issue that's manifesting outside of us is because of what's inside of us.
Okay.
What's inside of us is what's leading to the effed up society we live in today. It's only a projection of what's inside of people's subconscious mind. Within
Hmm.
their subjective world is why it's manifesting the way it is. So now, when you realize, okay, most of what I'm living my life on is based upon 85% of these programmings that are underneath the surface.
Okay.
So you need work that's going to crack beyond the conscious mind because the conscious mind likes to stay in control and it
Yeah.
rests with the subconscious mind quite often.
Yeah.
So you once you have some work, and we'll get to what kind of work in a second. Once you crack open and you go into your subconscious mind, now you got to crack again
Mm.
because now the subconscious is layers deep.
Mm.
So you're
Mhm.
going to have to go layer by layer by layer by layer. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what kind of work? Well, we use a lot of ritual work on the left hand path.
Okay.
Ritual work is, in essence, a form of reprogramming your mind. Anything that is repetitive programs your mind. This is why
Yes.
you hear,
Yes.
let's
Yes.
say, a hip hop song that the first time you hear, you cannot stand the song. It sounds straight retarded.
Yes.
10 months later, you're singing that song
Right.
because
Right.
the repetition seeps into your
Yes.
subconscious mind.
Yes. Now you
Okay?
were
Mhm.
I was in the same community that you were in, the
Right.
African Hebrew Israelites. I just did a video where they talked about that, where they would say, they would tell us people, Vishinam time. I'm sure you remember hearing that all the time.
Mhm.
And they would tell us that, people are saying that we are programming you. And I remember Ben Amik, he said, that's right, we are programming, we
Yeah.
are reprogramming you because you've already been programmed. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And it's just interesting to me living in a society where people think that this way of being is just it's just a natural thing. You
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying? Even to the simplest things of looking at a whole nother culture and thinking, oh, that's weird, that's strange, not realizing that what you're doing is just cultural as well. You
Yeah.
are not equating, but you're using your way of being as the standard for what it should be throughout the world, not
Yeah.
realizing that no, yours is just a different way of being and living as just like theirs. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and that I see that and I'm like it's difficult when people look at the world that way, as though this is just how it is. It's just how it's supposed to be. And I
Yep.
remember him saying that it's like, my great grandfather, he was a bishop,
Right.
in Church of God in Christ. And my mom told me one time, he preached the same sermon for like over and over and over again for months. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, finally, he broke down and he told me, I said, I'm doing this because in other words, you don't get it. You understand what I'm saying? Just like what you said, that repetitive, people talk about people who
Hmm.
repeat it. We repeat daily when we put one foot in front of the other. That is, a motion of repetitiveness. This is how things become a part of us. Again, that programming, and that's how it's done, through constant over and over again, until you just doing it without anybody telling you, or prompting you to do anything or believe anything.
Yep.
So
Correct.
that's it. Yeah. And the reality is it's like there's nothing wrong with that. That's a part of our human existence. It doesn't matter. You can take one program away. Now there's going to be another program that comes in.
Oh,
Somebody's got a program. They're going to
yeah.
program you, you
There's
know.
always, in our existence as humans, we will always have programming, no
Mhm.
matter what. The problem is, what programming are you choosing? Are you choosing to
Mm.
create your own programming?
Mm.
Meaning you reprogram yourself, put in there what you want to be in there and not what was forced inside of you or snuck inside of you. See, that's the difference. In the left hand path, we choose to separate ourselves. The left hand path is a path of separation. What does that mean? We separate ourselves from the old paradigms. The old paradigms being the Abrahamic faiths and all these traditions and things that seem to keep people stuck and bound
Yeah.
and never really progressing and moving anywhere.
Mhm.
We separate ourselves to create our own personal paradigm or our new paradigm. We get away from the traditions. We get away from the goddess, gods and goddesses and angels and devils and satans, and we get away from that.
Okay. Mhm.
And what we do to learn that is sometimes we go into those very things that has been taught to us on the, let's say, the darker aspect of religion or spirituality, and how they paint Satan and the devil and this and that as bad, keeping people away from it. But what you find out a lot of times as you continue to journey, the very things that your pastor, preacher, reverend, imam, your parents, your grandparents, so on and so forth, try to keep you away from, when you actually take control of yourself and take your power back and you go in there, you realize why they tell you to stay away from there. It's not because it's scary, it's not because it's demonic, it's because through those very things they painted as bad, evil, taboo, is where your power is waiting for you to tap back into.
Okay.
See, what happens is if I paint a picture
Mhm.
that A through Z is bad, then all I ever look at in life is what's good. But not, we
Mm.
fail to realize that is not actually scientific. The
Okay.
universe itself has negative and positive,
Right, right. That's right. That's that
protons
the
and
yin yang.
electrons,
Right. Okay,
right?
go ahead. Hmm.
The Buddhist and the Tao and the Taoist concept of the yin and the yang, right?
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Always has the positive, negative side, but in each side you always have
That's right. The
that
opposite.
aspect within there.
Right,
And
right.
it's a reminder that you have to integrate the
Hmm.
two, and you got to stop running from it,
Okay.
because the facts are everything in nature has a positive and a negative,
Hmm.
including us as a people. However, we're told to shun, run, or ignore the negative side of ourselves. And
Right.
it's not a weakness. Negativity is not a weakness. Negativity is there to remind you of certain aspects of yourself when you most forget. If you react a negative way time and time again to a certain situation, that negativity is actually your teacher, not the positivity in your life that's your teacher. It's the negativity in that situation that's your teacher because it keeps repeating itself
Mhm.
over and over and over because you still haven't learned your lesson. So you find yourself in the same so called negative situation 50 times because you don't or we refuse to learn our lesson of what negativity is trying to teach us. This is why I laugh sometimes at the conscious community and the new age community because they fail to realize that everything to them is peace, love, and light, positivity. That's incorrect.
Mhm.
Every atom has a positive and a negative. Every
Mhm.
atom, from subatomic to atomic particles, have positive and negative polarities. All of them.
Well,
And
let
this
me
is
ask you this.
why,
Mm,
go ahead.
okay, some people may hear that and think, okay, if they've flown with it and understanding that that's true.
Right.
Okay, but they would also say, what we need to do is to get rid of the negative.
You can't.
Okay, okay.
How can you get rid of something that
So
exists
then, what do
with
you
oh,
what do you do with it? What? Okay, if the
you learn
negative
to
keep popping up.
integrate it. You learn to integrate it within yourself. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So somebody comes at me
Hmm.
and they're coming at me in an aggressive way,
Hmm.
in a potentially violent way.
Hmm.
Is positivity going to help me at that moment? Think about this.
No, no,
You
not
can't
at
peace,
all.
love, or light the situation.
Hmm.
And that's why some people just get annihilated on this planet because they try to peace and love light the situation. Oh, I'm just going to love you. But listen,
Bullshit. Right. Right.
you got to learn how to be aggressive in the moment
Hmm.
and protect yourself.
Right.
Because that person that's coming to off you is not coming to love you. They're
Right.
coming to destroy you.
Right.
You can love light all you want, but that is
Right.
not going to do anything.
Right.
At that
Right. Right.
very moment, you need to channel all the negative energy inside of you to destroy that person from destroying you. It's
Right.
either you live or you die at that moment,
Right.
right? They're
Right.
going to live or die. There's no choice. There is no medium ground like people like to make it. Like there's this medium ground where I could just choose to just, push them off a little bit. No, if they're intent on killing you, you cannot just brush them back.
So, in other words, it has its place, just
Everything.
like the everything has its place. It's
Yes, I'll
not
give you an example.
okay.
Rage, right? Rage is always painted upon as negative. Anger is painted upon as negative in this
Hmm.
society.
Hmm.
Therefore, they have anger management class, so on and so forth. But people don't realize that is done purposely to make you
Yes.
think it's negative so that you have no aggression. So when they try to, let's say, force things upon you,
Yeah.
you have no aggression to
Yes.
fight it off or rebel against it. You've
Right.
been maimed, you've been weakened, you've been made numb.
Here.
So, mhm,
Here.
so
Here.
because
Yes.
of that,
Hmm.
there is therefore easier to control the masses of people.
Right.
If I keep you thinking that negativity or anger or rage is bad, you should
Hmm.
get rid of it. I have you. I got you. I got you because when it comes time, and if you had to actually protect yourself or rebel or for any reason for your survival, you would people would not be able to do that. So let's look at the mom who lost her job, lost her house. She's living in a car with her kids. Her kids are 3 and 4. They're
Hmm.
hungry. She has no means to feed them because she has no job at this moment, no
Hmm.
place to live. They're in their car, so trying to survive.
Hmm.
She decides, look, my babies are starving. Their body is thinning out. They look very sick. I have to feed them. So I go to Kroger or Publix or Stop and Shop, wherever areas people live in, grocery stores they have, supermarkets they have. I decided to go in there and get some food for my kids. I
Mm-hmm.
decided to break in there and get some food for my kids. Unfortunately, I get stopped. Why does that person face jail time, prison time, divide you from your kids, take you away from your kids because I was doing what I felt was best for my kids to survive because every door had been shut in my face.
Mm-hmm.
People paint that as negative. She's
Right.
negative. That's bad. That's
Right.
wrong.
Right.
Is
Mm-hmm.
it? It's not.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we tend to learn, anger and rage, is based upon your perspective.
Right.
How you perceive things is usually based upon how you were raised and programmed.
Right.
Unfortunately, the majority of society has been raised and programmed under religion. So
Yes.
we tend to look at things that are opposite than what we were taught in religion as the devil, as demons, as wrong, as
And
evil.
don't realize some people when I'm listening, they think that they are, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And it's like you have no clue because you don't really understand what religion is. You are probably more Christian than the pastor himself because you don't understand the tie of a religion and culture, that every culture is going to have a religion, usually religiously based. I mean, we got to remember that there was one time where the king didn't run things. Who ran things? The religious leader, the bishop, the priest, or whatever the case may be. The king had to go to them. You understand what I'm saying? And get permission from them.
Yeah,
And they told them, and it's the same, in ways. And I listen, I'm like, no, you're very Christian. You're more Christian than Christian itself, but you don't understand the time. You don't understand that a lot of these things that you read and pick up nowadays, or whatever that you
yeah,
a lot of times are listening to on YouTube or whatever the case may be, that there is an agenda to keep you bound in that state of mind, in that space. And it won't have the title Christian to it. Doesn't mean anything. It's the same thing. People think that sometimes Christian
listen,
is going to church. No,
I'll give
there's a whole
mhm,
uh uh you understand what I'm saying. It
yeah,
is a religion, and it which is a philosophy, which is again a way of life. I know they separated these things, when you go to school and whatnot, but
hmm,
when you're on that other side, you realize that usually religion is falling under the philosophy department for a reason.
yeah,
You understand what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Well,
You
here's
know.
here's what's here's what's interesting about that.
Mm,
Every time you break away from religion, there's something else created to keep you stuck back under it. It's
yep.
just put under a different title or different trimmings
Right.
and a nice and neat package given to you. So I'll give you an example.
Hmm.
A lot of new age, spiritual people, conscious people, it is a form of spiritual bypassing. What I mean by that is they left God, Allah, Yahweh, Jehovah, so on and so forth, right? They're
Hmm.
super spiritual now. Now the universe. The universe is blessing me. The universe is doing this. The
Right.
universe is doing that. Here's the problem. You just traded God for the universe. You're still under the same religious concept.
It's
You
the
just can't see
same.
it.
Yep, it's the same verbiage under a different title. It's the same exact thing.
That's it. It's a nice new package
Yeah,
with nice little crystals and
yeah,
little incense and you know prayer beads and so on. And so you're still doing the same exact thing, man.
same thing.
It's
Right.
you're still under the same programming, and
Mhm.
that's what's hard for people to understand. Well, left hand path wants to break free of all that. It wants
Okay.
to leave all that behind. But what we do in the left hand path is we investigate the very things that are considered what we shouldn't investigate.
Okay.
All those things that were told to us as taboo, leave that alone, that's wrong. That's what we investigate because we find out through there is more power to your awakening, and that's why it was told to you to stay away from there. Because some of a lot of the work in the left hand path, the rituals and things are serious forms of shadow work that will crack deep into your subconscious mind, into the abyss of your subconscious mind.
Now tell us about that. Can you hold on for a quick second? I gotta just get some water. I'll be right
Mhm.
back. Give me some. Let me get some water. That lasagna. Okay.
Yeah.
Apologize. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what we tend to do,
I got some Funyuns. I'm gonna be
okay, cool,
crunching.
cool. So we go into those systems that are considered wrong or evil or negative or whatever, and we find out through there's actually more work that allows us to bypass these things, meaning not bypass in the sense of spiritual bypassing, but bypass the blockages within our subconscious mind and our conscious mind to get to the root of ourselves, to be able to transform ourselves. It's a very serious task, and there's so many blockages that stop us from getting there, that the work has to be hard enough to get through there, strong enough, dark enough to get through there, because people tend to think that everything they're going to do is going to be in the light. Well, here's the problem with the light aspect. In their own religious systems, whether it's the Bible, whether it's the Torah, whether it's the Quran, God created in the dark, not the light. God created in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the true power to manifest and create? See, this is what a lot of Christians and Muslims and Jews miss. Where's the true power to create?
Mm-hmm.
It ain't in the light, it's in the dark. Because God had to say the light was good.
Right.
So there was a great chance that the light wouldn't have been good. Do you understand? So God
Okay.
is sitting there in the darkness saying, all right, I'm gonna manipulate the protons, electrons, neutrons, subatomic particles, the mesons, the bosons, so on and so forth, and I'm going to manipulate all these particles to create a physical existence. But I can only do this in the dark. In order for this to manifest, then I have to create light. I have to
Okay.
create a light for me to be able to see what I created. Okay?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So that means that for my human creation, they need light to see themselves. Because to become a god, many of them will never understand. They have to go into the dark to become a god.
Mm-hmm.
To create in the darkness, like God did in their religious texts, is the power of godhood. So in the
Okay.
left hand path, we realize, yo, the real power is not in the light. The real power is in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
The real power is in all those things they tell you. Oh, the demons are bad. Oh, really? Well, then why is there a whole other side to the Kabbalah? Beyond the tree of Sephiroth, there's the tree of Klippoth, which is the tree of death, tree of darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole system that allows me to empower myself, master myself, and reach my own apotheosis, my godhood.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
Mhm.
A couple things I want to say. I always think about this like when I would teach Taoism,
Right,
because the Tao is the what from which all things manifest in
right.
Taoism. All things come from the Tao, and there's only 5 images where you can realize the Tao, and one is darkness.
Hmm.
You know, and I will talk about that in class. It's like life comes from the darkness. A seed is planted in the
Hmm.
dark, and out springs life. It's not to be you know how people say, oh, we got to know darkness to appreciate the light. No, it's not about appreciating anything else but what it is. It has its place. You know what I'm saying? And it's light was not one of the images in
Yeah,
which the Tao can be known, experienced. Light is not one of the images at
it
all.
is.
You know
That's
what I'm
correct.
saying? It's valley, which another thing you're going into the dark, the
Yeah,
valley, darkness, child, woman, and water. Those are the
yeah.
5 images. Okay, but also I think about Star Wars.
Hmm.
Of course, child growing up, of course, you always think it's about good overcoming, or the
Evil.
light
Right.
overcome because I want to ask you about that too. I want to ask you about the Sith, but it's not. It is that was not their goal at all to get rid of the dark side. You
No,
know, no, that if you pay attention to the movie, it was only to bring back balance. You
yeah,
know, to the
balance
Force.
to the force.
That's all it.
But
You know.
well, where the Jedi messed up at is this:
Mm-hmm.
what they thought was balance was almost eliminating or minimizing darkness. What Because their version of what they consider the force was light. This is
Hmm.
why in their philosophy, when you really listen to their philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
they had a monk mentality, that of a monk or a nun.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Jedi, they try to minimize their emotions and consider everything to be peace. Okay. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
the Sith say, okay, the Sith will say, peace is a lie. There's only passion. Now, why did they say peace is a lie? Because what we were taught about peace is a lie. The peace that people are seeking is a lie. They are seeking some utopian society, utopian version of what would be considered peace. No war, no fighting, no hunger, no anything. That's that. Listen, everything on this planet is fighting to survive.
Mm-hmm.
From
Look at
the
nature itself.
from the bacteria to the amoeba to everything, it
Right.
is fighting to survive.
Right.
There is a predator and prey in every level of human to animal kingdom.
Right.
That just is how it is.
Right. It is. It's a war. Um, I used to listen to Dr. Africa. He would say it's a war culture, but it's not just Western culture that is a war culture. It is the entirety of this realm that we are living in. You know what I'm saying? It's, the bird's gonna eat the worm to survive, and what's gonna eat the bird to survive. So so on and so forth. Everything is about survival,
And
living,
this is why,
perpetuating itself.
yeah, and this is why when you look at the Sith, their whole Sith code was
Mhm.
against the Jedi code. The Sith code was basically peace is a lie, there's only passion. Why? Passion is what fuels you.
Mhm.
Passion is what fuels you to accomplish your goals. If you're sitting there at peace, tranquil, calm, you have no you're actually becoming stagnant. There's
Mm.
no movement. It's just like you're stagnant. You're just
Mhm.
sitting there in calm and serenity,
Right.
but that's temporary.
Right.
And throughout the whole universe and multiverses, that is a temporary, fleeting thing that
Mhm.
most spiritualists are trying to accomplish.
Right. This-
Passion is what
right.
even fuels you to seek that. That's what
Right.
they
Right.
passion fuels you to even
Right.
seek some so-called peace. Passion
Right.
is what fuels you to discover spirituality,
Mhm.
metaphysics, science,
Right.
engineering. It's
Right.
the passion behind that
Passion.
that creates
Right.
the societies and the worlds and the civilizations. Well, you
Right.
have to be passionate about your goals and accomplishing things.
These
So they
things,
say
these.
peace is a lie. There's
Mhm.
only passion. Through passion,
Mm.
I gain strength. I'm
Mhm.
gaining strength because I'm passionate about accomplishing my goals. I'm passionate about doing these things. So I'm becoming stronger. Through
Okay.
strength, I gain power. What
Mm.
power? It's not always an external power. I'm gaining power over myself because the whole mission of the Sith is to become a master. Okay, so
Mhm.
I'm gaining power over myself. That is the true accomplishment of a Sith. Through power, I gain victory.
Okay.
Through victory, this is the key of the whole Sith code that people miss. Through victory, my chains are broken. The
Hmm.
Sith admit there's a chain upon all of us as a
Yeah.
people, whether it's Jedi, whether it's Sith, whether it's regular mundane world. There
Mhm.
is a chain upon all of us, an unseen imaginary chain. And the Sith acknowledge that fact, and they realize when I'm victorious over myself, when I've mastered and overcome my weaknesses, my issues, my programming, and reprogrammed myself, and took my weaknesses and made them into a strength. I
Mhm.
transmuted them
Mhm.
using alchemy. I
Mhm.
transmuted those weaknesses into a strength. I now have the power to be victorious over myself. Therefore, I'm breaking all the chains that have ever controlled me, bound me, whether it was self created chains or external chains put upon me from where I lived, around who I was, the people I was around, or culture, religion, or society I was around. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter. I'm breaking free from all of that. So the Sith and that whole philosophy that George Lucas revealed, it came from a place. It wasn't just some he took it out from the middle of the
Right.
air. George
Right. Right.
Lucas was in California. The Temple
Mhm.
of Set was started in California.
Right.
And
Right.
Set, the symbolism of Set, Satuk, the
Mhm.
colors of Set, the philosophy behind Set, it
Mhm.
equates to that of Sith. And how the words are almost close, because another variation of the word Set was Seth, Seth, Sith,
Mhm.
Sith. E and
No. Okay.
I are interchangeable in the English language.
Mhm.
So the Sith are very similar to the Temple of Set or Setians, and Lucas being an occultist, because one of his teachers that Lucas
Joseph
learned from was
Campbell.
Joseph Campbell, who
Joseph.
was a
Yes.
master of symbolism,
Yes.
master of
Yes.
mythology.
Right.
He was one of his main teachers and taught him these aspects. This is
Mhm.
where this idea of the Sith came from.
Okay.
People want to vilify the Sith because Hollywood and all this has to have a hero story. As Joseph Campbell said, it's
Mhm.
always about the hero story.
But you know what's amazing to me? Yes. I used to show Joseph Campbell some of his interviews and whatnot in my classes. But what's amazing to me is how when you watch these types of films and the Marvel superhero movies and everything, it's like you're given a choice. When
Mhm.
you listen to the role of the villain
Yep.
and you hear his reasoning, quite often, if not all the time, I can't say all the time, it's like, okay, that makes perfect sense. You understand what I'm saying? And many people could probably sit there and listen and say, damn, that, he got a point. You understand what I'm saying? But the indoctrination will not allow you to, you understand what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
uh to cheer, root, however you want to look at it, take that side. The indoctrination tells you, here, I'm going to show you. This shit makes perfect sense. But
Exactly. And
guaranteed, because of the indoctrination, you're
yeah,
going to choose the side of the quote unquote light side or the hero, whatever the case.
yeah,
Even if their point, sometimes they won't even necessarily deal with what the villain is saying.
yeah.
Sometimes
Well,
it's just
this
a
is
matter
why.
that
Um,
the villain is always there to upset the truly the wrongs.
right.
You know, now their method, may come into question sometimes.
Yeah.
But
But
that's mm-hmm,
when you watch these movies with villains,
mm-hmm,
usually the villains are kicking more of the truth
yeah,
than the
yeah,
hero.
that's right,
The
that's
villain's
right.
actually saying more truth, but we've been so programmed that we can't hear that. A lot of times people just are on the hero side that they can't really hear what the villain is saying,
Right,
right? And this
right.
happens quite often throughout, you know, our progression in life.
Mm-hmm,
It always leads to that. Carl Jung, or Jung, the
mm-hmm,
psychologist, said it best. People are seeking enlightenment. In so many words, people are seeking enlightenment by manifesting images of light. He said you can't become enlightened like that. The only way you can become enlightened is by doing the work in the dark.
in the
But
dark.
it's unpopular, so therefore people don't do it. In so many words, this is what he said, because
Mm-hmm,
he studied a lot of the occult. He went into a lot of things in the occult. And
mm-hmm,
this is why Carl Jung was kind of like, labeled and ostracized from psychology for a long time, because they consider him too controversial. You know, he was going too far into occultism and not enough into psychology, because psychology has to be, in this systematic form and fashion. But he mentioned that too. You
Okay.
don't become enlightened by just sitting there manifesting and imagining images of light and beings of light and things like that. No, the real work has always been in the darkness. However, what people don't realize is they're afraid of the dark.
Right.
Most people are afraid of the dark. That's why they never accomplish the goals they set out to do, because that dark side of them that they've never learned to integrate, to
Mm-hmm.
love, to embrace. That dark side of them has been trying to teach them a lot of stuff for a long time, but because they run into the images of light, which light can blind you, darkness can't blind you. This is what people fail to realize. Stare in the sun long enough, you will become blind. Sit in
And you
darkness
can't
long
see.
enough, you will not become blind. If you sit in
Right.
darkness long enough, your
You
eyes
begin to
actually
see.
adjust and you start to see
Yes.
even more.
Yes. That light will blind you. That's even like in the church, if you want to call that light, the
Yep.
love and light type thing. That was one thing. This is old school stuff,
Yep.
um, it will tell you, you don't become so heavenly minded, earthly good, because people would, it's like if you get off into that, it's like it's one extreme. People think going into the dark. Ravana, you there?
Yeah.
Okay, all I saw was the image in the
No, no,
back. Okay.
no, I'm here.
Um, um, if you go so far off into that, I mean, people have lost themselves, have lost their mind, literally, by the light, light, light all the time. But let me ask you this.
Hmm.
Now you have an image behind you, which I'm sure if anybody, popped onto this, except, your people, whatever, they probably like, oh my Lord, oh God, and clicked off immediately. Okay. Explain to us the imagery. Explain to us, like you were saying, the cracking the code, and
Okay.
what is a demon? Do you use demons in your practice to help you crack this,
Right.
like you said, the code going into the dark? And then, like, why is that necessary? What
All
is
right.
that all about? Aren't demons evil and bad? And
Well, first of all, there's different philosophies within the left hand path. There's an overall philosophy, then there's different philosophies on how to achieve apotheosis. Apotheosis is a Greek word, basically means self God or deified, you're deifying yourself as a God.
okay,
Don't mistake it into attaching that word God to a religious concept.
or
To
to
us, being a God is being responsible for your ways, your actions, your choices, and owning it, and not blaming or externalizing anything that's happened to you. You take full responsibility for the good, bad, ugly, and beautiful in your life. To us, that's becoming a God, having the power to create your own existence and owning everything that happens to you, whether it seems lovely or not. Big difference. Second, demons are, some people choose to work with them. In left hand path, there's demonology, there's the clip path, there's various different paths you can choose within the overall path.
okay,
I personally don't believe in any gods, goddesses, demons, any of that. To me, they are archetypes, metaphors of of what we can be. So,
okay,
for example, if you look at a Lilith, which is considered a demon by some, many in the religious world consider her a demon. If you
mhm,
look at her symbolism, her character, her attributes, what you get is a woman who had the power to break free from control that men had over women.
okay,
See, so she was vilified back then because men were trying to control women. Today, she's becoming lifted up by many women who see her as an image of what it can be. The problem happens in this, and this is my problem as well, walking the left hand path, is you have those who are theistic, meaning they still want to worship something, even within the left hand path, and they'll glorify and worship Lilith. I have a problem with that because the way I came into the left hand path, I came through vampire magic and Set. And as vampires, we have no gods. Okay, as vampires, we have no gods. You are your own god. This is why you seek to become immortal, not physically, but mentally. Your conscious seeks immortality beyond the limitations of the physical body, and the physical body will expire one day. So your consciousness is always seeking to expand itself, to become more powerful in knowledge, wisdom, understanding, in gnosis. The mysteries are being revealed to you. Okay? Hey, hey. So that's my puppy growling over there. Anyways,
I remember him.
so right now,
Mhm.
that happens within the left hand path where you get some who are theistic. And then
Okay.
you have those who on the left hand path that realize even that glorifying and worshiping and honoring and hailing a demon or a dark god or whatever, some of us just realize that's still holding on to religion, and there's no other way around it. It is still holding on to religious philosophies and everything else. You're just choosing the darker side of that religion or tradition to do it. It doesn't make you any different than a Christian. You're just a darker Christian because you're still adhering to the philosophy of a God and a devil. You're still
Mhm.
adhering to a philosophy of something outside of yourself having power over yourself, right?
Okay.
Now,
Mhm.
if we choose to work with a demon, you're choosing to work with the archetype, not so much worship it, but the archetype is that metaphor, that aspect, that characteristic, that attribute that best resonates with you and the power that archetype has been given, meaning what we have associated and given that archetype this power, is what you are feeding upon to use to break the blockages and obstacles that are trapped within you and your subconscious mind. So you're taking the energy that people have fed, let's say Lilith, for 6,000 years. Hey, calm it down, boy. So you're taking that and you're feeding upon the energy that the collective conscious has fed that archetype, so-called god or goddess,
Mhm.
and you're taking it to use for yourself to increase your power, to increase the consciousness, to use that to overcome your blockages and obstacles and programming, things of that nature.
Mhm.
So that's what in the left hand path, that is the goal of a lot of these things. Okay, it's never
Okay.
to worship or grovel to these demons. It happens. People are people, and this is why sometimes people even come in the left hand path, they're still coming with a religious mindset because they
Mhm.
might have just left Christianity, Islam, Judaism. They're seeking something new, so they're bringing that into it, and that
Okay.
happens. And this is how sometimes you can tell people who are just beginning the left hand path and people who've been on it for years. A lot
Did
of
you
people,
find
huh?
did you find that for yourself because you
Yeah,
you were coming from a religious,
yeah.
background?
I came. Well, when I came into the left hand path, I had left a lot of religion behind. I was already into uh, Egyptian magic, things like that. I had left religion behind in like '98. That's really when I just got tired of it, and that's when I
Okay.
got more into occult practices. Okay,
Okay.
but in that search within the occult is what led me to the left hand path 12 years ago. But I kind of already had done a lot of studies on who God is and isn't, the religious control, the religious control, the religious mindset. I had faced a lot of that. So when I came in, I
Mhm.
wasn't looking for any connection to a god or demon or anything. I was looking to break free from all of that. That's what drew me to the left hand path, and that's why when I came in, Set and the principles of Set and the philosophy of Set is what made me say, oh, this is where I find myself at. Because I don't need a God. I don't need a devil to
Okay.
justify or validate my existence. I don't need that because I
Mhm.
am my own God and my own devil, so to speak. I have both
Mm.
polarities inside me and I integrate it into a harmonious existence. I don't need to worship or grab on anything outside of me. Unfortunately, some people still do. Okay. But as
Mm-hmm.
a vampire, which, because that's the first way I came into the left hand path, as a vampire, it's a different kind of science. The science of vampirism is the science of spiritual predatorism. It is existing and has existed since the beginning of time, where you
Mm-hmm.
realize you're either being fed upon or you feed upon. What does
Okay.
that mean? We all have a life force. Some call it prana, some call it chi,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Some call it sechem, whatever the case is. There's a life force of subtle energy that is sublime, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it exists whether people want to acknowledge it or not. That energy is what vampires tend to feed upon
Okay.
to increase their own energy. Therefore, use that energy to transform themselves to reach apotheosis. So let's say I'm very tired at night and I'm trying to accomplish a ritual, but I'm just too tired. So we'll start to feed upon the energy. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
then I wake up, it charges me up, and I complete the ritual. And by me completing that ritual, I receive more gnosis in my
Okay.
journey.
Okay.
So no, I do not believe in a god goddess. I do
Okay.
not worship god goddess. I do not get into that notion of a god goddess and that you have to have. I'm not with all that. That's
Okay.
what I can't. I get nauseous hearing people even on the left hand path sometimes talk about that.
Okay.
I get
So.
nauseous
Mhm.
about people talking about prayer. You need to pray. I'm back in religion when I hear people say, "Oh, you need to pray." I'm talking about people on the left hand path. I'm back
Okay.
in religion when I hear that, and they'll justify it, and I'm saying no, because if my goal is to reach apotheosis and be my own God,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the purpose of prayer in the first place?
Hmm.
What would be the purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Well, to affirm your own power and existence. I don't need to pray to do that. I
Right.
don't need
That
to
makes
pray to
sense.
affirm my own existence. I need to
Mm-hmm.
do work,
You
constant
need.
work on myself to affirm my own power. I don't need to pray to anything.
Mm-hmm.
See, because prayer is always the act of speaking. It's
Mm-hmm.
the act of speaking or saying something.
As opposed to doing and
Unfortunately,
being.
mhm, but
Okay.
unfortunately, people don't do enough listening.
Mm.
So I cut out prayer years ago. Even before the left hand path, I had stopped praying.
Okay.
Okay, because I had also when I was younger, I learned from five percenters, the Nation of Gods and Earth.
Yeah, I
I
remember.
learned
Mm-hmm.
from the Nation of Islam,
Right.
and so on and so forth. I was around a lot of that, the Moors, so on and so forth. It was always about mastering yourself. Even back then, it was just veiled within Islam. Okay, but some of these teachers back then were trying to get some of this out there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I wasn't a part of really, I never really was into the whole God devil concept, even when I was in that. That's what made me leave religion when I was young and start searching.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing is when you become this person who's on a quest,
Mm-hmm.
prayer is only a part of the programming of what you left. I don't care who tries to justify it on the left hand path. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care what they try to say. It still is connected to something outside of yourself.
Outside of yourself.
It is
Okay. Well,
because
let me ask you this. Okay, go ahead. You can finish.
affirmations are different than prayer.
Right.
There's a big difference between the two. I
Mm-hmm.
can sit there and look in the mirror and say,
That's true.
I am such and such, such and
Right.
such. That's not prayer. I'm
Right.
looking at myself, acknowledging my power.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to think it's prayer. Because even by you thinking that it's a prayer shows how you're still under religious programming. This is
But let
this.
me
Go ahead.
now using the for example, using the demonic forces or the demons or whatever to help to in the ritual work that you do. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
could you not use, because of, like you said, their archetype for something that you are trying to achieve? So,
Mhm.
two questions. So, you don't necessarily believe that they're actual beings, number
No,
one.
no.
Okay. Okay. So,
That's
they're archetype. It's an
yeah. I
archetype.
consider them
Okay.
archetypes, which are basically symbolism of
Mhm.
or a metaphor of a what we would consider a example of a powerful person or being or whatever. But
Okay.
what happens is people do consider them to be real. For example, you have theistic Satanists. Okay, I have a problem with that, and
Hmm.
they will say, "Well, Satan is real. Prove it." They
Also, you
can't.
don't believe in even that. Okay. No,
Yeah,
no, none of these, all of these are just archetype.
archetypes to me because when you ask someone to prove that Satan exists, it's the same thing as asking a Christian, does God exist? They can't prove it. No one can. Oh, well,
Hmm.
I manifested Satan in a ritual. I wasn't there. So you want me to co-sign your subjective experience, but I wasn't there. That's the subjective experience. That doesn't mean it's real or not real. Your mind can create anything you want to be real. You
Okay.
can't prove it because when I ask you to manifest them, you can't do it.
Okay.
So
So
if
let
you
me.
can't do it at that moment when I asked you to do it, then this same thing as being back under religion. You're still a Christian, man. You're just on the opposite side of the spectrum. Period.
Okay. Now you get. I got the second question. I got one more based off
Right.
based off that. Since you can use the demonic archetypes to help you,
Mhm.
with your goal, can you use the God archetypes to do that as well?
Here's where it gets tricky.
Okay.
The light gods, the reason why the light gods are weaker, and I'm saying why they're weaker if they were real, is because the light gods lack balance.
Okay.
What do I mean? If they're light gods, they try to disassociate or demonize or denounce the darkness. That makes them weaker if all creation came from the darkness.
Okay.
You would understand why a being of light would try to denounce and make people fearful of the darkness. Because if they're created from something lesser, then in order to keep you spellbound and under my control and you praying to me, I have to make you fearful of what's more powerful than me.
Okay.
See, when you really look at religion, and this
That's interesting.
because
Okay.
I gotta I'm gonna let in like 5 minutes I gotta get going, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
this, okay?
Hmm.
When you look at religion,
Hmm.
the light gods are more sadistic,
Hmm.
violent, and controlling than so-called demons and Satan. Nowhere, and I will test any Christian who will watch this video. Nowhere can you show me any time the devil killed someone. But I can show you no, I'll show you hundreds of places where your own God killed the firstborn children of Egypt, caused plagues upon people, diseases, floods, storms, starvation. What kind of God is that you worship?
Hmm. All right. Okay. Go ahead. I thought you were done.
But nowhere can I find the devil doing any of that. When I do find the devil in the Bible, guess what I find?
What's that?
In the beginning of Genesis, chapter 3, the devil comes to give knowledge to Eve, and that's considered evil, wrong, and vilified because the devil
Hmm.
said it clearly. He said, God doesn't want you to eat from that tree because he knows when you eat from that tree, you will know good and evil just like gods do.
Hmm.
Sounds like someone was trying to keep us under slavery,
Right.
trying to
Right.
keep us controlled. And
And
the
my
devil
take,
came trying to wake people up and say, yo, wake up, man. Eat.
right,
Take of this fruit because when you do, you're going to realize
you
that you
become
are just as strong and powerful as this so-called God, knowing
right,
good from evil. God don't want you to know that because he only
right.
wants you to know one side to control you.
In the textbook I used for my classes, the author said that God didn't want competition.
Yeah, pretty
Didn't
much.
want competition.
In the left-hand path, you learn that these gods that religion is under are the new gods. And they had a war with the old gods, pretty much like the Titans
Yeah.
had a war with Zeus and
Right.
Zeus's
Well, you
children.
know, now I've heard you mention him, not the most favorable light, Bobby Hemmett, because he, got delved into the darker aspects, and he said that right there that you mentioned, those newer gods had, went to battle with the older gods,
Yeah,
which was supposed to be us, and it trapped us.
yeah,
Basically, they won that battle and trapped
they
us,
won
our
that battle,
soul.
and that's in the left hand path. That's all up and down there. Bobby Hemmett, I never had a problem with. Bobby Hemmett did his work. He taught what he taught. There's
Okay.
just certain things I can see from someone who's walked within the inner schools and inner mysteries that I see that is not quite on point that he's sharing with people. So I
Okay.
just leave that. I'll leave that at that. I give him
Okay.
much respect because he came to our people, the melanated people, to wake him up and give him stuff
Yeah.
that most of them were not ready for and still are not
Showed,
ready for.
especially when he was doing it.
Yeah,
Showed,
they were
did.
not ready for and still are not ready
And
for it.
still not ready for it.
So I've never
No.
had a problem with Bobby Hemmett.
Okay.
Okay, that's my thing is people who take Bobby Hemmett, try to worship Bobby Hemmett, but are
Mm,
not doing the works that he himself did.
right.
Do
I
you
mean,
understand what I'm saying?
oh, I
So
do. A lot of books that I got from listening to his lectures.
yeah,
That some of them I still haven't opened.
yeah,
You understand what I'm saying? I
that's
mean,
the thing. So now in the left hand path, this is what I learned, and I'm gonna leave it like this.
hmm
We have to go beyond the books. See, a problem with our people a lot,
hmm
especially when there's on the spiritual journeys, we get too caught up under books. Books are just manuscripts. They're just guides to get you going on your
that's what I
journey.
say. It's just a guide. They're just
Yeah.
guidelines. It's just a guide.
But a problem is many people get stuck under there, and the more you start staying stuck under books and these authors, the more you're being programmed to be the author's
To
pupil,
worship another
worship
something
another
outside of
person above
yourself.
you. Those
Right.
books are just to get you started. My problem with people is that not enough of Bobby Hemming's students actually apply the work, have
Mm,
actually gone in and took the journey for themselves.
right.
That's the only problem I ever had with that was please don't quote Bobby Hemming if you yourself did not journey and do the work.
And he made
Okay?
that clear himself. He
Yeah.
made that very clear. Yeah.
And that happens too much.
Right.
And therefore you get people who then come after him, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And the way they try to get their followers is by them using their experiences with Bobby. So you co-sign that. Oh, well, he had experiences. He learned from Bobby. So
So,
did
right.
that person themselves take a journey deep inside these things? If not, no.
Right.
Because
Because,
you can
yeah.
read 1,000 books.
Yeah.
I got a library all around in this room I'm in right now of books from the occult, every aspect of the occult.
Right.
I've read over 10,000 books. That does not mean nothing if I don't apply it.
If you don't apply it.
I leave the people who are going to watch this video with this statement, which a lot of them will not understand, and that's okay. It may go over their head or they may infuriate them. Knowledge without practice is dangerous.
Mm,
Practice without knowledge is equally dangerous.
mm.
Always remember that. Don't
Yes.
get so caught up on being so deep that you don't apply anything you
If you
learn.
don't apply it.
Don't try to do practices unless you understand what you're doing
Right.
because you can hurt yourself.
That's damn
You're
right.
opening up darker forces
Damn
that
right.
you have been running from all your life, and it
Right.
can hurt you.
That's right.
So,
Well, Ravana, I'm sorry I was saying none is noon.
mhm.
I appreciate you so much for
Yep.
coming. This was awesome. I may ask you to come on again at some time
I'm
and
all
keep
down for it.
doing.
We could
Okay,
do it
because
next
I
time.
got
If you want to do it, just let me know a
all
week in
right.
advance. We can
So
work.
many questions. I
All right.
wanted to let everybody know me and Ravana, we both come from the same college, Howard University. I
All
was
right.
like shocked to find that out.
Yep.
You finished before I did, right?
No, I finished in '98.
Oh, you finished in 98.
Yeah.
So after me. Okay, I was there in what was it? I graduated in shit. I can't remember.
I think you
1994.
graduated. You graduated right before I got there. I think you
Right. Yeah,
graduated.
that's right. 94.
Yep.
94.
I got
Yep.
there in '94.
Because that picture you had up, brother, let me tell you. I think if I had seen you around there, I
Yep.
might be in Florida with you right now.
There you go. Hey, no
I
problem. No worries about that. No problem.
said, good Lord, have mercy. But
Yep.
nevertheless, I appreciate you coming. Let me just say this. Ravana is on YouTube. The name of your channel is Temple of the Black Serpent, right?
Yes. Correct.
Temple of the Black Serpent, which it was different when I started watching you.
Yeah.
That was 2020. I can't remember what it was called. Your
It was the
Patreon,
Eternal Black Flame back then, but
Eternal Black Flame. That's
yeah,
right.
but
Yep.
everything, everything metamorphosizes.
Yeah,
So now,
we continue to evolve.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I evolved into actually opening a temple for those who want to really dedicate themselves to learning vampire magic and the occult of different occult sciences, but the klipas and the deific mask, which is learning to wear the mask and not worship the mask. So,
Okay.
things like that.
Okay. Well, he's got a Patreon.
Yep.
I took one of his classes. It was a great class on Patreon.
Yep.
And your Instagram is
The Temple of the Black Serpent.
I'm about to say Eternal Black
Temple of
Flame.
the, it's just Temple of Black Serpent. That's it. You'll find it like that.
And it's don't be scared. I know he's got the imagery in the back that can be scary to some people, but if you are interested, he is very open to talking to you. I messaged him before I took his class. Boom, he gets right back to you. He's not unapproachable at all. So if you're interested, you just want some information, and he's not gonna have you down there chopping off heads and eating dogs and
No,
drinking their blood.
no, we don't do that.
Okay.
See, that stuff came from a time when people were extreme in the '60s, and it
Mm,
kind of left a negative stigma on people's workings. You know what I mean? But
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
we don't do stuff like that. What we do is face ourselves. We face ourselves, master ourselves, and that work is harder than people think. But if you want that, just reach me. But
Yep.
I'll let y'all go.
All
All
right. Thank you so much
right.
once again. All right.
Yep, yep. You
Peace.
take care now.
All right.
All
You
right.
too.
Yeah. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. All right, everybody. Thank you for those who came in. I saw one, two, but then I get off and then I'll see it was more views than what I can see right here. Please like the video, share us. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I appreciate you all for coming in. And for those who were here, stay, thank you for being open minded. Just to, if nothing else, learning, not about no one's trying to get anybody to join their community or their group or their way of life and being, but learning, especially things that have been taught to us to keep us bound. All right. All right. And have complete misconceptions about other people's way of life and being. All right. You all have a great evening. Be blessed. Peace.